attracted you to this character in the script?
Well, I love the character, but I love the script. I love the story. I mean, I read it and I thought I didn't see any of the twists and turns coming. And I pride myself as an actor. You know, you read a lot of scripts, you read a lot of stories, and there tends to be very standard formulas for things. And I thought that this broke the mold a little bit, or a lot. And I thought originally that's what brought me in. And I also like this character. I mean, Mike Weston is a junior field agent for the FBI, in way over his head as far as this is the biggest case he's ever worked on. But he's brought in because he studied Joe Carroll and this case at Quantico, and so he understands the literature, he understands the violence, he knows everything about it, and then subsequently knows about Ryan Hardy, Kevin Bacon's character. And what I thought was fun with Mike, what I thought was fun with the character is that, there's the hero worship aspect. He's kind of a goofball when he meets him for the first time and sort of gushes and whatever. I think we can all sort of relate to that. Sometimes when you meet the people you look up to, you shouldn't talk to them because nothing good happens. You know what I mean? It's just like, all right, I should have just like waved or stood in the corner or whatever. So that was kind of fun to play, and I think there's a bit of levity there. In such a heavy, it's not slapstick jokes, but I think Mike brings a bit of lightness to those situations. But on the other side of it, Mike is also very capable, and so wants to earn Ryan's respect. And so I like the idea of playing both sides of that, and just exploring the case through this guy's eyes, which is kind of fun.
So is Weston like a profiler FBI geek or a serial killer geek?
I think he's probably a serial killer guy. I don't think necessarily he's a profiler.
Right.
Again, and I think that's why he. I guess technically you could profile serial killers, but I'm not sure if you would profile everything. I think his main focus was specifically this case, and probably because of the serial killer nature of it.
I'm just wondering what it is as a character that draws him to these sort of people.
Well, honestly, I think as human beings we're fascinated by this kind of violence, and so I think also too the way that I look at Mike, and it's not really in the backstory. It's something that Kevin Williams and I talked about briefly, but I think he probably comes from potentially a law enforcement background. There's that sense of justice. I think that Mike becomes very consumed by this case, and potentially if he was on the other side of the line, he might be interested in Joe Carroll as opposed to Ryan Hardy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what's interesting about this. It's like, what side of the line do you walk?
And that's what was going to be my next question to you, is just because initially you seemed so enamored with Ryan that I thought, okay, they're going to get married, but he seems like an acolyte. And if he's an acolyte, well, we have Joe, who has multiple young people as acolytes. Yeah. Could he easily slip to that other side?
I don't know. I think, and this is my personal view, is that you walk on one side of the line or the other. I don't think you go from being like, I want to put people away. It's about justice. I'm going to see dead people, and I'm going to risk my life to put these people away to then go over the other side. Mm-hmm. But I think that the commonality, and potentially why maybe Mike can get inside these people's heads and understand it, is because he has some of that. Some of the concept of being consumed with something, by understanding it, by falling into it. So, again, it's not necessarily something that is necessarily focused on, but as far as thinking about a character and creating it, I can see that sort of connection between the followers and maybe people that are just obsessed with their work.
It might not be. I was just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
This might be on the list of things you can't talk about, but I think just watching the pilot, you were the only one who wasn't in a flashback or sort of remembering something. Will you be sort of being in some flashbacks down the line?
I will say this, that, Mike's role basically is in the present. And so we learn about the character, obviously, but, Mike's main purpose is to solve this case, you know what I mean? And so we really find Mike in the present working on the case, in all sorts of facets. So
he seems like the only character in the cast that isn't broken. Will we eventually see him fracture as the show goes on?
I don't know if fracture's the word. To be honest, again, I think he's new to this. I think he's excited about this. I think that Ryan Hardy potentially could have been Mike Weston years ago, before he was put to the meat grinder of being obsessed with all this violence and stuff like that. So I think naturally, and this is given in a way, that Mike witnesses things that potentially change him or just mold him. But a fracture does not a word I use.
Okay, I'll take that off the board then.
Okay.
It's gone.
Sean, this is a question I asked Annie before. If you're playing an FBI agent, is there a certain responsibility to get the moves right, to get the character right? Because there are people who are actually seeing this who are FBI agents.
Yeah. I will say this. I spent time at the Federal Building in Los Angeles talking to the FBI. We had, when we shot the pilot, we had guys on set, armors that would say, okay, well, you're holding the gun like this, and if you were trained 5 years ago, you would actually enter with a flashlight like this, but now they're kind of using like a double-handed thing. So there's all these details, and at the end of the day, you want to be accurate, but we are making a TV show,
Sure.
so, I think it's important to do justice to what these people do. They put their lives on the line to capture, really dangerous people. So yeah, I think that you want to do justice to these real people. But I also have done like a medical show, and you talk to doctors or ER nurses, and they're like, it's all crap. even the best shows, it's like you technically can't do, if you were to intubate somebody and put like a breathing tube and stuff like that, it takes like 5 minutes. Like you couldn't take in the middle of the scene take 5 minutes to do it. So they're always like, well, that's not really how you do it. So you have to skip steps. So yes, it's very important, I think, to be accurate, but realistically, you can't be as
Within
accurate
reason.
as you really need to be. So there's got to be some license there. We apologize now.
Have they given you mentioned something before that Kevin Williamson had given you something between the two of you? Does he give you a sort of a backstory or insight into your character that's not in the scripts? Or do you have to go to him and ask if you need to know that information to play the character?
Both. When we shot the pilot, I sat down with him because there isn't a lot of backstory for Mike in the pilot, and so you come in and as an actor, you want to do as much thinking as you can. You want to create as much detail as you can, whether you need it or not, whether you see it on screen or not. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the job. It's part of the creating a character. So I went to Kevin and asked him things. I said, I was thinking that this, and some of the ideas he was like, yeah, that's great, that's good, or yeah, and some of the things he was like, no, absolutely not. And the reason you want to ask that is because, you don't want to run with something in your head and then 10 episodes down the line be like, oh, that's actually not where we're going. And again,
Right.
even if it's not a spoken word or a detail, it's just the way that you're thinking about things. So yeah, there are, he gave me sort of a general direction, family backstory, stuff like that, and even just the way that Mike studied at the FBI, he would be the guy that would stay on the shooting range longer. Mike's not the guy that would kung fu somebody down or do crap to somebody, but if they come at him, he's a skilled marksman because he spent the time to do that. He was a guy that was on the range, and so he could put a bullet, through somebody's eye.
Do you think it's going to be a time that he's going to test his moral code?
I don't know. That's a good question, to be honest. And when I say I don't know, I really don't know. I think that would be interesting. I can't even imagine what the scenario would be where he was asked to do something that walked the line between that. I don't know. That would be really interesting. It would be a great moment, a great, arc. But I don't know. It would be cool.
Because your character's so light, what do you think attracted him to serial killers?
Justice.
Okay.
I think that's a simple answer, but you want to put somebody away. You want to, I don't think you necessarily have to think like a serial killer. I think that maybe is why Ryan Hardy is so good at it, is that he puts himself into it. Maybe that's why he got broken down. But I don't think you necessarily need to do that to work a case. And I feel like I think Mike probably just wants to put the bad guy away. I think that's somebody out there doing wrong, and he just wants to be the guy that